Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. As the title of the video suggests, this is another mountain leader tips video. This one's on about freelancing. So if you're here to learn tips on how to pass your mountain leader assessment, you're in the wrong place. This video is aimed at people that have just passed the mountain leader assessment. They've got their ML ticket, mountain leader ticket, and they're looking to do a little bit of work. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the pros and the cons of freelancing, and I'm going to give you some top tips on how to survive in the outdoor industry. In the outdoor industry, there's basically three options on how to make a living. The first one is you make your own company and you work for yourself. The second one is you freelance for other companies. And the third option, you do a combination of both. You do your own stuff and you freelance for other companies. So this video is aimed at people that go for options 2 and 3, freelancing and doing a bit of their own stuff as well. So the pros and cons of freelancing. The pros, you can basically pick and choose when and where you want to work. It helps you keep a healthy work-home life balance. But that said, Mrs. P stroke head office has fallen out with me a few times because I always seem to be working on her weekend off. The cons are that you are responsible for your own tax self-assessment each year. You're responsible for your own insurance, training, clothing, travel, accommodation, social media, and you have to be proactive in getting work. My first tip is don't quit your day job. I've seen mountain leaders or hill and moorland leaders or lowland leaders that have just passed their assessment, they've got their ticket, and they think because they've got a new qualification, they're going to make a fortune in the outdoor industry and they want to quit their jobs as soon as possible. Stop. Don't do it. Don't leave that guaranteed income until you are well established, you've got a good reputation, and you've got guaranteed income coming in every month. The industry can be a little bit fickle, especially like during the COVID season when the industry suffered massively and lots of mountain leaders ended up quitting the job and going to find other jobs in other industries. A mountain leader, daily rate of pay, so minimum about 150, anything up to 250. Depending on your qualifications. And my next tip is don't put all your eggs in one basket. By this I mean don't work for just one provider. You want about half a dozen at least, so if one company goes bust, you're not left high and dry. I've heard some right horror stories about people not getting paid and not being paid for months, and the company goes into liquidation or goes bust and then they don't get paid. So yeah, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Try and split the work up between at least half a dozen different companies if possible. And that brings me nicely on to the next tip, and that is diversify. And by this I mean try and get as many different skills and qualifications as possible. For example, a mental health first aid course. I can open a few doors. You do end up doing welfare walks for different companies. I ended up doing welfare walks for West Yorkshire Police. It can open doors up for companies like Mind, different mental health charities. Doing the National Navigation Award Scheme tutor course, the NNAS tutor course, that allows you to run navigation courses on their behalf. I've done a bolt-on day out with them as well, so I can run bronze, silver and gold courses. So I run my own courses and I'm able to step in and run courses for other providers. You can of course run your own navigation courses but that aren't certified, but they're not as attractive to your customers. Because I've got a massive interest in wildlife, that secured me some part-time work with Yorkshire Wildlife Trust, doing the guided walks, bird tours, and also because I've got a massive interest in wildlife photography, I run my own wildlife photography workshops, and again I've done this for Yorkshire Wildlife Trust and for other providers. So yeah, just having a sort of broad range of skills can help you guarantee a bit more of an income. I would also encourage anybody new into the industry to do their online Duke of Edinburgh e-learning. And again, this can give you plenty of work between March and October, and it's probably the bulk of my seasonal work during the summer. Winter can be a little bit quieter, so the more skills you have, the more work you can find over winter. One option, if you are interested in first aid, is to get a teacher qualification, and this would allow you then to teach first aid courses over the winter periods. My next tip is keep on top of your paperwork. There's nothing worse than having to do that dreaded tax self-assessment at the end of the year with a year's worth of receipts and bills and invoices. So if you keep on top of that, it just makes life so much easier. Use the quieter months over winter to help develop your business. And then this, I mean, keeping your safeguarding policy, if you have one, up to date. So in my calendar, I have that listed for the quieter months. Once a year, I just go through it and just make sure it's current. I have to have an Information Commissioner's Office licence because I'm collecting data or details, personal information on people booking onto my courses. My first aid certificate is valid for 3 years, so get your requalification well in advance, at least 3 months before it's due to expire. And keep your D-log, your digital logbook, up to date. Any potential employers are able to look at your D-log, and if it's blank or there's been nothing updated in there for a few years, then they're going to start asking questions. And have your CV up to date. That's your curriculum vitae. I try and add something onto my CV each year, so when that juicy job comes in that you like the look of, you're ahead of the game. Your CV's ready to go. You don't have to spend a day, 2 days updating it, getting it ready. Make sure your insurance is up to date and read the small print. Each policy is different, and some of them have stipulations that you've got to do a recce of the area or be familiar with the area. There's ratio numbers, so 1 instructor for 12 clients. You've got to do a safety brief, you've got to have medical information, or you've got to do some acknowledgement of risk form. So they're all different, but it's worth having a read through and finding the small print. And my next tip is join the Mountain Training Association. This is different to mountain training, where you get your qualifications from. Mountain Training Association is a community for outdoor leaders, guides, instructors, etc. And they offer or organise continual personal development workshops, and I try and get on as many of these as possible. These are a great way of networking, preventing skill fade, keeping your skills updated, finding out new policies and protocols that are in place, and you can actually get some work out of them as well. So I've been on some of these workshops. I particularly like the wildlife and the conservation ones, and just chatting with people on these workshops, I've ended up coming away with a bit more work. On the Mountain Training Association website, the MTA website, they also can organise or help you get insurance, and these are great. Rather than ringing around various companies, there's a one-stop point of reference to go and get your insurance. You also get a free magazine 4 times a year. Another good one is that through the MTA you can get various discounts at different outdoor outlets. So you can get 40% off at Montaigne, 40% off Osprey, and there's quite a few other good ones. The MTA also organise a couple of conferences each year. I've been on 2 or 3 of these, particularly like the winter conference, which is generally held up at Glenmore Lodge. We can learn winter navigation skills, winter skills, winter mountaineering. There's talks on an evening, The accommodation at Glenmore Lodge is fantastic, and yeah, highly recommended. So my next tip is to join the Freelance Outdoor Facebook group. There's lots of work advertised on this group, and if you've got a free weekend, it's a great way of sort of filling up your calendar. There's lots of helpful people on there as well, so if you've got any queries about insurance or ALA queries, there's people there happy to help. Lots of talk about minibus requirements and safeguarding policies, Duke of Edinburgh stuff. Yeah, lots of good tips on there. However, if you are newly qualified with a mountain leader qualification or a hill and moorland, there's 1 or 2 providers on there that will try and get you to work for them at a reduced rate or for free on the guise that you're building up your own experience. Try and resist that temptation. You are undervaluing the industry. Yourself and all the other instructors have spent thousands gaining their qualifications, travel, accommodation, kit, and you working for nothing is just taking value out of the industry. So just resist that temptation. And don't be afraid to do some voluntary work as well, some volunteer work. And this is different to working for somebody as a provider at a reduced rate or for free. What I'm talking about here is things like Yorkshire Wildlife Trust. That opened up some doors for me, and I got a part-time job with them. Walking for Health. Most councils around the UK do a free Walking for Health walk. So I volunteered once a month, a 2-hour walk, and the return was huge. People liked what they saw, and they started booking onto my navigation courses or my guided walks. Youth Hostel Association and British Mountaineering Council do a walking festival once a year. They're always looking for guides, instructors. And again, this is a great way of networking. You don't get paid, but you will get reimbursed your travel costs. So they'll pay for your fuel or your travel costs. But again, it's a great way of networking. You get some freebies from the BMC, and you get to meet some really nice people. And my next tip is build yourself up a reputation as being reliable and professional. It can take years to get a reputation and seconds to ruin it. So if you do agree to a job, honour that job. Don't start making excuses because you've got a better payoff for somewhere else. If you agree to work for somebody, then honour it, even if there's a better paid job elsewhere. So turn up early, look the part, be professional, wear your association badges, but do not wear your own branded gear. So if I'm freelancing for somebody else, I will not turn up with my Boot Roots hat or my Boot Roots jacket or my logo. I do have the logo on the back of my van, but I will park that somewhere discreet with the logo backed up against the wall somewhere. Every now and then I do a bit of remote supervision for Duke of Edinburgh groups where I'm meeting them at set locations in my van. My logo's on the back of that, but I have agreed with the provider that's acceptable. I'm not promoting my own business. If I'm out on a guided walk and somebody likes what they see and they want to come on one of your navigation courses, direct them back to your provider, the person that is paying you for the day. And it just shows that you're being honest and you're not nicking customers. At the end of the day, they've put all the effort into advertising, pulling the event together and paying you. So the least you can do is be loyal to them. So yeah, don't try and nick customers. You will get a bad reputation and then you won't get any more work. And my next tip is keep your fitness levels up. Don't take on that 26-mile charity walk if you've not stretched your legs for a few weeks. At the end of the walk, you may be required to go out and find some missing walkers. And if you're not fit enough, you're just going to be stressing about it the night before, that you won't be able to keep up with your group. So yeah, you need to have a certain level of fitness. And that might be having to carry somebody's rucksack to make sure they get around the Yorkshire Three Peaks. On one occasion, I had to chase a Duke of Edinburgh group who were travelling fairly fast. It was a silver or gold. I was doing some remote supervision, and their protocols was that every hour they had a mobile phone and they had to send in a 6-figure grid reference. So they'd done the grid reference checking, and then they forgot to lock the phone, and it was in somebody's pocket, and every time he took a step, he was sending a text message. And bearing in mind, every text message cost 10 pence. So by the time I got to him about that group and told him about locking the phone bill was through the roof. So there was an example of when I had to get a spurt on. Another incident, I was on a charity walk. I was at the summit checkpoint on Ben Nevis, and we had a missing walker. Somebody hadn't checked in at the checkpoint. I went round all the groups at the top of the summit, couldn't find the missing walker. Went down to the next checkpoint at the top of the zigzags, and the mountain leader there, who had clearly struggled with the fitness on the way up, wasn't bothered about any missing walkers. All she wanted to do was get herself down and off the hill. So I had to go back up and do another search for this missing walker on my own. Eventually found her. She'd put an extra layer on top of her event t-shirt, and she got earphones in, so she'd not heard me asking the group in the summit shelter. So I escorted her down, and on the way down I passed another one of the event walkers that clearly got some sort of knee injury, and the other mountain leader had basically walked past her, desperate to get down. Needless to say, that mountain leader didn't get any more work with that company. So yes, keep your fitness levels up. My next tip is don't be afraid to turn work down. And this, you need to know your own worth. There's companies out there that pay £150 for doing the Yorkshire Three Peaks, taking groups around the Yorkshire Three Peaks. Now for me, it's a 2-hour travel to get to Hutton in Ribblesdale. It's then a 12-hour challenge, and then a 2-hour journey home. And it's quite a physical, tough day. So that's like 16 hours. And some of these companies are offering £150 to do for the day. And that's not including your fuel. When you work it out, that's less than a tenner an hour. It's less than minimum wage. So I don't take them jobs anymore. There was one company that I worked for. I got the list of the participants a couple of days before the event, and there was 34 people on the event. So I rang them up, and I wanted to know whose insurance were operating under, mine or theirs. They told me they're operating under my insurance, which I found strange. And then I've highlighted that my insurance only covers me 1 instructor to 12 participants. And there was a bit of a pause at the end of the phone, and then they said, oh, actually it's not a guided walk, you're simply following on behind as a safety sweep. So while they were on the phone, I checked their website, and it clearly showed it was a guided walk. They were just trying to do it on the cheap. So it says that you either find a couple more instructors or I'm not doing it. So they found a couple more instructors because they didn't want to cancel 34 people. And it took 3 months for them to pay. And I had to buy everybody around the drinks at the end of it. And yeah, 3 months to pay, considerable amount of money. So yeah, again, I refused to work for that company again. Partly because of the late payment, but mostly because they tried to pull my pants down and stuff me with 34 participants on my own. Yeah, so don't be afraid to turn work down. My next tip is stay within your remit. Each leader qualification has a candidate handbook or a syllabus. You need to know this inside out. So print it off, have it somewhere around the house, toilet reading material, next to the sofa, somewhere you can just pick it up and regularly refresh what mountain training are recommending. And they have a thing called Inspire. You need to know that inside out, and that's what they're expecting, how you operate with your groups. My next tip is buy the Mountain Leader book by Mike Rain. Lots of books out there, but this one, the second half of the book, is designed for people that have already got their ML tickets and how to operate as an ML once you've got your ticket. And there's lots of top tips in there from quite a few different instructors, including yours truly, but it's well worth a read. The Mountain Leader by Mike Rain. And my next tip is have a supply of kit. And what I mean by this is just some spare kit in the little tub in the back of your van or back of your car. If you turn up for a guided walk, there's always somebody that's forgotten the waterproof jacket or a warm jacket or the hats and gloves or head torch. So just have a spare supply. For example, I had a group of 12 booked on a night walk up in the North Yorkshire moors, and I knew it was coming, but I didn't expect the amount that had actually forgotten to bring a torch. So 6 out of the 12 hadn't brought a torch. So a little bit of fiddling around in the van and I managed to supply them all with some sort of lighting. So you've got to cater for all eventualities. So just build up a little bit of a supply, some more waterproof jackets, hats, gloves and head torches. My next tip is look the part. You want to be turning up looking smart, clean waterproofs, clean boots, shaven, look people in the eye when you say hello to them, a firm handshake. Apparently people make their minds up about you in the first few seconds. So start off positive and make a good first impression. And people will remember 2 key things on any sort of guided walk. And the first one is the highlight of the day. And that might be reaching the summit or watching that spectacular sunrise or sunset. And the second thing they remember is the farewell. So on my courses and walks, I always try and finish off with the 3 C's, coffee, cake and a chat. Make sure they go away, see, last thing they see is a nice friendly smile. Tatty worn gear might scream to some experience, but to others it can look like you're just not bothered and you've not made any effort at all. And my next tip is not necessarily for freelancers. It's if you're going to do your own stuff. Have some sort of USP, unique selling point. And mine is that because I'm into my wildlife, conservation, anybody that books with me, I plant a tree with a charity called Trees for Life. I'm basically losing £6 profit per booking. But if you're into sort of carbon footprints and you want to help write that carbon footprint off, then something like that might help you. And I know it is popular, people book with me because of that USP. And I've noticed that other companies that very similar to me have also started doing planting a tree for paying customers. And my other USP is anybody booking onto any of my navigation courses are able to come out with me when I go up Kinder Scout twice a year, practicing my own navigation with a contour only map. So they're welcome to join me on that just to sort of brush up on their skills. And that's free, I don't charge them any extra for that. So yeah, that's my 2 USPs. And that's just if you are going to go and do your own stuff, have a USP. So there you have it. That's my top tips on how to survive as a freelancer in the outdoor industry as a mountain leader or a walk leader. These tips might not work for everybody, but they do work for me. And I'm doing something right because I am in demand and I'm getting regular work offers all the time. So if there's any other things that you think I've missed or that might benefit or help somebody that's new into the industry, then put something in the comments below. And until next time, that's me signing off and thanks for watching.